In this video, I'm going to be discussing chapter 12 of our book, and the main thing I'm going to be focusing on is the Great Recession of 2008 and kind of why it happened and why it was set up for it to happen, and the definition, different things that occurred, and the downfall of our economy as a whole. So the Great Recession happened in 2008 with the housing bubble being burst. So I'm just going to take you guys through some of the significant impacts that it had and why it occurred. So recession is a normal part of the economy. It's in the business cycle. It's bound to happen at some point when you're only on an upward slope. Obviously, you can't just keep going up. It's always going to come back down. But in 2008, it came down very, very hard and very, very fast. And it bases around a lot of things of the economy. It could be gross domestic product, the housing bubble, interest rates, just the basic economy. A lot of different reasons can affect economic crisis, but in this particular situation in 2008, it was all around the housing bubble. So in comparison, the last time that the economy was as bad as it was in 2008 was in 1929. The Great Depression occurred, and we learned about this early on in the class, and it happened with the stock market crash in 1929, known as Black Friday, and kind of after that, everyone lost their homes, they were out of work, just typical things about the economy falling. So at this time, wages fell 42% from what they were before, and that's a significant decrease. And gross domestic product was cut in half in 1929, and it went from $103 billion to $55 billion, which is just ridiculous. So in 2008, this was the worst depression since 1929, and it affected so many different people. I remember in elementary school, like hearing my friends being like, oh, my dad got laid off. Like so many people were just being laid off left and right because businesses just couldn't stand anymore. And this happened through multiple different industries, and yeah, it just really affected a lot of people. So the typical working age of Americans, those people on average were losing $2,700 of annual income, and that was a typical thing across the board of Americans, and that's a lot of money for a lot of people. Labor force lost 8.4 million jobs, which is just crazy. So why this happened? So from 1990 to 2006, housing prices were steadily rising, and banks kind of got in on this, and they were just handing out loans for homes that they knew that people could not afford, just like crazy. They were just giving them to, like, they would give one person 3 loans for 3 different homes that they didn't need, but it seemed like such a good deal that they couldn't pass it up. So when this housing bubble burst, all of these people lost their homes. Homes were being foreclosed on like crazy. Homes were super, super, super cheap. So people were just buying them up after they got foreclosed on for future purposes. But still, people were just out of work, out of homes. And yeah. So the business cycle typically can last from more than a year to upwards of 12 years. So this housing bubble being burst could have affected us for much longer. It took us a long time to recover. But one of Barack Obama's main points in being elected president was to fix the economy, to fix the middle class that was paying lots of taxes, and just to kind of tax the upper class, the upper 1% of America more, because the middle class was just being hit so hard by this recession. That was one of his main goals and objectives while he was president. So essentially, in conclusion of this video, because of this recession, so many things were affected. For everyday Americans, average incomes were lost. The government was taxing more to try and make up for it. trying to create new jobs and trying to get the economy steady. Housing and real estate was just, I mean, a wreck. People were losing their homes to the banks, and the banks were also extremely messed up. The stock market was just crashed. Jobs were non-existent. New jobs were just not there. It was very hard for people to find work. And yeah, I mean, it was a really terrible time. So that was just a horrible, horrible time. So yeah, those were the main points of the economic fall of 2008, the Great Recession, why it happened. And then kind of in preparation so that the next economic recession couldn't have, banks were kind of put on hold of handing out all of these loans. The government took action with that. And that was one of Barack Obama's main points, was to protect the people of America by regulating the banks. So yeah, hopefully it'll never happen again, but those were just kind of the main reasons for it. And yeah.